Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you listening. You may just be listening, depends on what platform you're on. Are you listening to the animals? They are talking. They're trying to tell us all something about our planet and what's going on, and it is of vital importance. And we're going to talk about that today. We stopped listening, apparently, and I'm getting that from her. She's an animal communicator. Yes, she communicates with animals. Yes, it's real. I've experienced it. I've seen it. She's amazing. She can even communicate with animals that have passed over. And we're going to talk about what's going on in our world. And I don't want to be negative. It's not the best thing. And that's what our animals are telling us. By the way, they were here before us. Kate Solisti is on the program. How are you doing today?
Hey, Steve, great to be with you. Yeah, it's we're going through a fascinating, let's look at it as opportunity.
Mm,
Um, because I have been communicating with animals, not just dogs and cats and horses and ferrets and bunnies that are beloved by many people, but also wild animals for 30 plus years now. Um, what we are at a real, many people have heard about this tipping point. And the tipping point from the animals' communication to us is that there is this climate change is a very real situation that is going to impact every living being on the planet. And humans like to argue about why, whether it was human caused or whether it's natural. It's irrelevant, really. It's about things are changing and they're changing really, really fast. And the animals have talked to us about what has happened to human beings where we aren't like making this priority number one.
mm.
And what they've told us, and not just me, but other people in my profession, people who are tuning in on their own to their beloved animals, is that we have separated ourselves. The animals are all interconnected with the plant kingdom and the soil and the air and water. They're all interconnected and they know their place in that whole. They know that relationship in that they're piece of that incredible, intricate, beautiful web of life, the circle of life.
Mm.
Um, and that circle of life is something we've stepped out of. And it is why we are wreaking so much havoc and why we've lost our way. And the whole idea that in this country, in America, there are people actively trying to destroy the Endangered Species Act is horrifying and mind-boggling to me. Many people may think that the Endangered Species Act is just about saving the spotted owl. Well, who cares about a spotted owl, let's say? I mean, that was a big argument some years ago in the Pacific Northwest about logging versus the endangered owl. It isn't just about the owl. This is the important thing. When you are connected and you understand the interconnectedness of all life, you understand that the owl is one little piece. But the more you take pieces away, if you think of a spider web, right, and it's got all these intricate connections, you keep pulling away the strings, what is eventually going to happen? Or just,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, what the Endangered Species Act does is not only protect individual endangered species like the spotted owl, the bald eagle, the osprey, the grizzly bear, the wolf, not only one species, but they are linked to the entire habitat and environment that all other species depend upon. So, the Endangered Species Act has been hugely successful in helping different birds come back from the brink because DDT
Mm.
created a weakness in the eggs of the bald eagle and the osprey, and so and the condor, the California condor. So when they went to incubate their eggs, they'd crush them. And that when that link was identified, in part because of the importance of the Endangered Species Act saying we must protect these animals, guess who? Do you know which president created signed the Endangered Species Act into law?
My head is still spinning because I haven't heard that term Endangered Species Act in decades.
It's being attacked right now as we speak, Steve. right now. They want to upend it. They want to destroy it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Um,
You
mm,
know who signed that into law? 1973. That's a hint.
Reagan? Is
Richard
he
Nixon.
Nixon? Oh, I
Richard
meant to say Nixon. I'm
Nixon.
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
That's okay.
Mm.
That's okay. A
Watergate.
Republican. A
Yeah,
Republican, okay? A
yeah.
Republican who saw the importance and actually talked about how critical it was to save these species. Yeah, you might, yeah, we know Richard Nixon was a disaster on some other levels. And nobody's perfect, as we all
Nobody's
know.
perfect.
Everybody has their pluses and minuses, but this is outrageous and this is dangerous. And undermining the Clean Air and Clean Water Act, they want to destroy that too. I mean, let's not let this is big stuff that they are doing, and they're trying to pretend they're not, and they're trying to say, "Oh, this is about waste and fraud," and that's enough. That has nothing to do with waste and fraud. It has everything to do with profit. Period.
What's so sad is it's worse than ever when you take a look at the pesticides, the tainted foods we eat. Let's take a look at the microplastics that weren't here in 1973. All that other stuff. There wasn't Roundup in 1973. All of this stuff, it's worse than ever. And
That's right.
now we want to just throw it away. And I want
Yeah.
to add some some validity, even more validity to what you're saying in that if you believe in energy, and we're all energy, and that dude, I think his name was Einstein, started
Oh,
talking about it,
him.
him, and then we just like, yeah, poo-pooed it. And there are energetic chords with all of us, bazillions of chords, and there are energetic techniques. If you don't want to be connected to somebody energetically, you cut the cord. There's different ways to do that energetically. So, with what you're saying to the spotted owl, that owl, just using that animal as an example, is energetically connected to everything in creation. I'm sure there's a connection there to a wolf and a squirrel and the plants and everything. It's all connections. And now the spotted owl goes away. Those connections go away. That the function of that connecting situation, it falls by the wayside, and now our ecosystem starts falling apart.
And then
Oh,
what happens?
we fall apart.
There you got it. There's not the weather patterns are so messed up we can't grow food. I mean, this is suicidal, is what this is. And I can
Slow suicide because it's
maybe
not.
not.
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
mm,
the way that the polar ice caps are melting, they
mm,
thought this was going to take decades. It isn't taking decades. It's accelerating. Things are melting really fast. In speaking with polar bears a while ago, they don't expect to be around much longer.
wow, it's heartbreaking.
It is
Wow.
heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. And, they are, I love this phrase, charismatic megafauna. Within the scientific community, that's the category. And of course, charismatic megafauna are the big animals, right? The elephants and the panda bears and the whales and obviously the polar bear and the grizzly bear and those are the charismatic megafauna. And people get all excited about them, but then they also don't understand the whole soil. The living microorganisms in the soil are just as important, maybe even more to life in terms of food and plant life, right? In terms of their global reach
Mm,
is huge. And when we till the soil, we destroy those microorganisms in the mycelium. That's why we have to add all this poisonous fertilizer and stuff in there to try to restore it. But then it's a disaster because it's chemicals. There's nothing living there. And then we poison ourselves, we poison the soil. The farmers go into so much debt that they end up killing themselves because they are up to here in debt because they have to buy the fertilizer. And then if the crop doesn't work, the crop doesn't grow well, they don't have money to pay back for all that crap they bought.
mm,
And that cycle goes on and on. So, and again, it gets back to the chemical companies wanting to sell their stuff. And it comes back to that greed. It's not about keeping the soil healthy. I mean, the whole thing with the GMO seeds and the fact that you're putting fertilizer, you're putting a pesticide into the seed so that when it grows, it repels a insect, somebody who's eating it, an insect that's eating it, is a disaster because you're not only poisoning that insect, you're poisoning the birds that would have eaten that insect. And then they wanted to patent the seeds so that a farmer who grew that corn, let's say, could not reseed from that corn. They'd have to buy new corn seed.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Like this is the stuff
And
we don't know.
that's right. And this was happening in India. And happily, there's a very beautiful green movement happening in India. I cannot, I'm blanking on her name. Uh, Her last name is Shiva, and her first name begins with a V, and she's amazing. They call her the Green Gandhi, and she is a scientist. But there were farmers in India. Little, I mean, there are small subsistence farmers in India, right? Millions of people, and they were killing themselves because they couldn't grow their own seeds, and so they were starving and they were killing themselves, and it was outrageous. And it was our big chemical company behind that. Guess who? It begins with an M. Who was behind all that. And so what we are seeing right now is this absolute explosion of greed that is killing everything. And again, all you have to do is look at the fact that what's going on in our Congress to destroy the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, so that everybody can go polluting. I mean, why else would you do it, right? It doesn't matter that you're killing fish. It doesn't matter that you're killing the environment because somebody's getting paid. But again, if do you have children or grandchildren? How can you be okay with getting paid when you're destroying their future? My brain can't do this, Steve.
Well, everything you're saying here, I wasn't aware of the majority of it. The GMO thing scares me, and it's everywhere. I bought cereal and the packaging looked like very organic, blah, 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 right? And I'm like, oh, all right, this is great. This looks like it's wholesome. So I flipped the box around and I realized that it's made by one of the major cereal makers. So, right there, I'm like, oh, really? I was trying to get away from that. And then if you look closely, contains GMO engineered ingredients. I'm like, oh,
There you
I
go.
don't want to eat this.
At least they have to tell you the way this is going in Washington. They're gonna make sure that they don't even have to tell you the way this is going. Okay. So all of these safeguards that were meant to keep us informed and healthy and our planet healthy are going away because of this. I think it's the most insane moment I've ever seen or lived through,
It's
and most
evil.
of us.
And right down to that whole situation where genetically engineer a seed and then make it so that it can't reproduce. So now the farmer has to buy new seeds. This I got a visual, and this goes back to right around the time that Nixon signed that. Do you remember the public service announcements where it featured a Native American and they talked to,
Crying,
thank you.
right?
Yeah. It's a close up of his face and he's crying, basically saying in his face, what the heck have you done to
Yeah.
this beautiful land? And here we are, 50 something years later, and it's a billion times worse.
Well, we had made progress. Let's not forget that with the signing of the Endangered Species Act, as I've said, we protect the bald eagle is still here, right? The
Yeah.
osprey are still here.
Mm.
These animals came back, these birds came back from the brink. And other endangered species that stopped development of a wetlands or, which was protecting the towns and cities, right? I mean, part of the reason Houston floods like crazy is because they got rid of the natural environment that the wetlands that were like the sponge when there was flooding, because there was always flooding. But and the developers, they didn't care. They just wanted to make a ton of money. So they built all these, and a lot of them were really nice houses in nice neighborhoods, but there was no protection for them because they paved over all the wetlands. Just
Mm.
stupid stuff and greedy stuff. I mean, again, it's about greed. And this is what is just gone completely rampant right now. It is, like I said, and I cannot understand how if these people in Congress have children and grandchildren that they can be okay with this. I
But
I don't understand.
the interesting part is you could be somebody looking at what's going on, and that's all perfect and impactful. But you communicate with animals and hear what they're saying. And that's, what else are you hearing? Really? Let's say that owl. And by the way, I do marketing and I see a campaign right there. It's not just an owl, period. It's everything, period. Because we just minimize, just an owl. Yeah, well, no big deal. No.
Well, that's what the timber company, that's what they did, is they said, oh, you care more about the owl than jobs? It's like, do you get that the owl goes, the trees go, everything goes, there are no jobs. Nobody eats because
Yeah.
they don't want you to see, they don't want you to think ahead, they don't want you to get that. And then you have media who are just pushing these lies and pushing this agenda, and that is horrifying. And there's so many people who now say, well, you can't believe anything. Well, use your common sense. Okay. Stop listening to the news. Okay. Good idea. But let's just look at how everything is connected. Let's just do that. That you cannot have an apple without a pollinator. You cannot have most of our fruits and vegetables without pollinators. And how are we killing the pollinators, which are the birds and the butterflies and all the bees and the
Bees, right?
insects? We're poisoning them. Or we're denuding the fields and put in just a single crop, a monocrop, and they don't have the variety. And many of those insects aren't the pollinators for that plant. So what are they going to do? Where do they go? Right? This is why we have a crisis with the bees. This is why our butterfly populations are nose diving.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When was the last time you saw a rabbit? Yeah, I used to see him all the time. Frogs. I remember my aunt's
Oh,
house, maybe 20 minutes from here. There used to be frogs everywhere, and people would complain sometimes. They're in the backyard. I'm trying to mow the lawn. I got, bouncing all over the place. I get it, but it was theirs first. and then
well,
and then you bought that property, and it said, I have not seen a frog. I don't know, 10 years, maybe more.
not good because amphibians very much are a canary in a coal mine. And everybody should know that expression, which is what,
Right.
I mean, maybe now they don't, but it used to be they would take the canaries down in a cage in the coal mine, and if the gases were getting released and the canary died, the miners had to get out of there as fast as possible before something exploded.
Yeah.
That's where that expression comes from. Thank you,
Oh, I
canaries.
know it well. There's also a song by Sting and the Police called Canary in a Coal
Yes,
Mine. I live my
yes, I
life like
remember that
and
too.
it's metaphoric, but yeah, I mean, 100%.
I'm just
Um,
wondering if young people know that phrase because I
yeah,
don't know
no, I
how
hear
much
you.
it's used unless they know the Sting song, but then that's dating
And that
us
was
too.
decades ago. But it's, this is so impactful. And even if you ignore the news, ignore everything, your points are so valid. Where I am, we have osprey. There, I want to say 30 years ago, there was a big drive, leave them alone. And they make these big nests on top of telephone poles and things. They they're back in numbers now. The same thing. There's I can't think of the exact name, but there's a bird. It's a tern, Tern, a type of tern that is on the beaches. I'm on Long Island, and you wouldn't see them. Now they're back. They're back in numbers, and there's areas where you don't go there, and people adhere to that. The eagle, we got them flying all over around. There was a point where there was worry. There could be a problem here. It worked.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
worked.
And thanks to the eagle, they were our national bird, and that did get people at least a little bit
Yeah.
paying attention. That would be stupid to lose our national bird. But again, it's to stop. I mean, all this distraction on the phone, all this celebrity crap, all this craziness happening in Washington every damn day it's important to step back and go, okay, what kind of world do we want to envision for our children, our relatives, and our family that are not human? What kind of world do we want? This is such a beautiful planet. People talk about paradise. This is paradise. We live in paradise. It's us that have messed it up.
Yeah.
Everything is here that we needed. Everything was, it was here. There was this reciprocity. And that's what the animals are all part of, a reciprocal system with the plants, with the minerals, right? Everybody's sharing, everybody's giving. Plants also will protect themselves. They will put out there was a story in Africa that the kudu, which are big antelope, were eating. And I know we're running out of time, so maybe I should save that story for another time. But the long story short, that all of a sudden the kudu started to drop dead. And the scientists couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. The trees, the acacia trees that the kudu were eating were getting eaten too much. And they sent signals to trees far away saying, create, put out your poison, stop the kudu from eating. And they did. So that the trees protected themselves from being overeaten. It dropped the kudu population down. Everything, balance was restored. Nature isn't always warm and fuzzy. There are times where nature is very hard because something has to shift. But so is nature going to go, these humans, yuck. Ugh, ugh. Do we need to wait for that? Or worse, destroy her before she does that?
What do you hear? Like you communicate with animals. Other examples of things that you've heard.
Well, again, what they're saying a lot. They're talking about how critical different trees and plants are to them. If you take there are a couple animals like the koala and the panda that eat just like one plant, right? I mean, they eat a little bit of other stuff. The panda needs the bamboo, and the koala needs the eucalyptus tree. And it's essential for us to protect the eucalyptus if we want to protect the panda. I mean, the koala. Same with the panda. And China has done a lot to protect those forests because they wanted to protect the panda. But what does it do? It protects all of life, going back to what we were talking about with the owl. So what they tell us is how important it is to them that their source of food and shelter is protected and how they give back to the being that they have to eat. Birds will, refertilize the elephants. Well, I think I mentioned this last time, there's a type of palm tree that only grows when the elephant eats the fruit of that palm tree because it's in a hard nut. And the only way that the seeds are released from that
Wow.
hard nut, like a coconut, think, is when the elephant eats it and digests it and poops it out. It's when they poop it out, they fertilize it. And that's how the palm tree reproduces and grows. It can't happen without the elephants. And then the palm provides all this shelter and food for insects and birds, right? And so this is what they talk to us about is everything is connected. And I love that part of the Lion King, right? It is a circle of life. Everything is connected. And the out of balance problem that is created by greed, hello, right? That's a human story. It's not an animal story. That's my only problem with the Lion King is that it's a human story, not an animal story. Because animals would never do that,
Mm,
right? You wouldn't have that scar situation and you
no.
wouldn't have them denuding. No, that's a
What
human thing. That's
what
the lesson.
country would you say that you mentioned China is doing a pretty good job in terms of protecting endangered species and their forests and such?
I'm glad you asked me that. I was actually thinking about that early this morning, that I need to do some more research. I wanted to know what country's doing the best job. I'm going to lean into the Scandinavian countries a little because they seem to do a really good job. New Zealand is one.
Mm,
New Zealand is definitely a country that has cared about their wildlife. Um, they have given rights of person rights to rivers in New Zealand. Rivers have the rights of a human being. So I
wow.
think I think New Zealand wins the prize, actually. I think they do.
Mm.
There's other countries who are
Perception is
trying.
reality, and when I think of New Zealand, I think of it being clean, pristine, and I get that feeling. I get that feeling from when I think of their land and just their ecosystem and everything like that. I
Mhm.
feel like they care about that. And
They do.
I'm just
They
looking
always,
through my memory of things I've heard, seen.
no, they have. They have very strong environmental laws. But here's
Mm,
what I really want to leave our listeners with is this is a critical moment to become informed about what we can lose. And that sadly, where the United States was a leader in sustainability and renewables and environmental protection, we just in since January are now falling behind the other countries. The other countries say we can't trust them anymore. And again, if we are destroying all these laws on the books, clean air, clean water, the Endangered Species Act, we are defunding environmental protection and conservation. We have lost our way, and they're not going to look to us anymore as an example. And that is tragic because we have done so much, but we are letting what's going on in Washington destroy our reputation and the good works we've done in the world for humans and animals and the planet, as well as destroying our scientific research. Our NASA, our NOAA, our NIST, these scientific research places that are so important to weather reporting. Taking everybody away from NOAA. They are the ones that monitor the weather and the storms. We're having all these storms and stuff, but the administration just defunded them. It defunded a great part of them and fired a whole bunch of them. These are essential services, not just to people, but to the planet. We must stand up and say, we've got to protect ourselves and those we love, which includes all the non or more than human beings on our planet, because without them, we are nothing.
I don't do politics, but in looking at all of this, I understand there needs to be cutbacks. So you just look at it
Yes.
a little more, but that doesn't mean end it all. Some of our great forests, national parks, there's nobody running the show. That means anybody
Right.
can tramps in there now that people got fired and do whatever they want. Let's it's a free for all. It's again, I understand financially there may need to be some cutting back and maybe repositioning things, but the blanket let's just end it all. It's going to end it all. It's
Right.
going to end it
That's
all.
exactly right, Steve. And it's so sad because we could have done this sensibly. We could business, there's a business model. You don't just go in and cut whole departments without finding out which departments are working and which ones aren't.
Right, right, and which are essential, and maybe which maybe not be.
Right.
And I'm sure there's fluff there. I'm not taking that away. And it's a
Nobody
different
would
time
argue with it.
than it
Right.
was. 50, 30 years ago. It's a different time now. I get it, but we need to be a little more stringent in terms of what we're doing. I have to end today because I'm going to have a cup of microplastics, if you will. Like
Get your
seriously.
mug, Steve. Get your mug.
That's in our water. We're drinking it. It's been scientifically proven. It's everywhere now. So let's get some more. Why not? Crazy. Thank you for today. Thank you for the insight. Yeah, many of us have an idea, but not the degree idea of what you shared today. And that part of that comes from your communication with our beloved animals. And this is what you do. If somebody's looking to
is.
connect, even if you have, and these are the things that a lot of times we forget. Let's say you have a rescue animal and you're trying to figure out why they act the way they do. What was their life before they found you? Well, you can ask and provide that info
Absolutely.
and so much more. How do we find you?
My website, it's so easy. It's my name, katesolisti.com, and there's all the information about how to do a one-on-one session with me and your beloved animal, as well as my Harmony Pack, which is where we communicate with the wild ones, and we're learning and growing and becoming better people with their guidance, which I just feel so grateful for. Because we got to work on this if we're going to work on that too, but we got to do it at the same time now. Got to
And
get going.
you're not just one person. You're now part of an organization you shared recently worldwide of people that do what you do. So if everybody's comparing notes of their communication with animals and everybody's hearing the same thing, you're in the know. Thank you so much for today. Truly appreciate all the insight. And it's not just an owl.
Thank you. It's not just an owl.
Thank you. All right, we'll catch
Take
up soon.
care.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.